Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech, you know we got it, eh? Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech, you know we got it, eh?
And welcome back to the Tacos and Tech podcast. I'm your host, Neal Bloom, and I am joined by a good friend here, a founder, the Maine Melon, Jared Ruth of Ripcurrent. Hey, Jared. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Neal? How are you?
It's good to have you on this side of the pod. You've been on behind the scenes of many of our pods before. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's funny, you said Maine Melon, and I totally forgot that I put that on there because I was like, I don't feel comfortable saying anything else. I'm like, I don't know, man. Throw Maine Melon on there.
Yep. Well, it's
Yeah,
been used. It's your
that's
official title
funny.
now. Jared, we go way back. We go back, I think, maybe 10 years uh,
Yeah,
to the early days of Startup San Diego, the early days of you, I think, in San Diego, bringing big telecom to the startup community. But now you're doing
yep.
Ripcurrent. So we're going to take it back in a second. Do you want to give us a quick high level of what Ripcurrent is?
Yeah, sure. So, Ripcurrent is a marketing agency that specializes in really small, medium business. In fact, we really like to focus on Main Street businesses. And we'll go into it a little more detail, but I think what I found is as I migrated outside of tech back into Main Street and started talking to business owners, there was just like this massive gap of like understanding how to leverage tech in their marketing. And I think it was a lot of frustration too around just like I'm getting all these emails, people telling me I need to fix my SEO, I need to, fix backlinks, I need to do this and that, I need to advertise more. And so it kind of started from an idea of trying to help them just cut through the noise and help them be more efficient. And thus Rip Current. It's like, how do you do something that's a little different and use it as your competitive advantage? Um, so anyway, that's where it came from. And yeah, it's been a cool journey because now it's kind of morphed into not only just the marketing side, but also a lot of automation, which again, we're going to talk about that as well with agents and whatnot. But tech that a lot of small companies just weren't um, able to leverage before, and now it's become extremely easy, which is super exciting.
Yes.
It's hard for me to not keep going into more stuff
I
because
know, I know. We're teasing a lot of it. I'm just gonna say that when you say marketing agency, to me, I'm always like, you're an AI agency. Uh, and I don't think they're any different at this point now because of where you started and the tools that are at. It's just easier to build from scratch now, as opposed to assessing someone's stack and saying, you need,
yeah,
analytics or something. It's like, we can just prompt the thing you need.
yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there in a second.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's so much to unpack there. And I get fired up about this stuff. You know that, Neil. So
Totally.
I'll hold back for now.
Well, we do tool talk all the time, and I just said, let's just jump on the pod and do tool talk here. But you know me, I love to tell a good story as well. And so take it back for us. Like, how did you end up in the tech world here? Where was your journey to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think back, it started with tech and telecom. I mean, I was in telecom forever. And sort of what I found in telecom being there for 20 years, no, well, actually 25 years almost. Um,
When you were 5 years
I
old, you
skipped,
started.
what's that?
So you
Yeah,
started when you were 5 years
I
old.
started when I was five. Yeah, I was watching television and using the phone. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, so I was working with a very large provider here in Southern California. And it was sort of before they were serving businesses. So kind of my first foray into, well, prior to that, I was working as an IT manager, but then getting into telecom, they weren't really serving businesses. They were more serving consumers. And so I had this really great regional vice president who came to me and said, "Hey, Jared, you're pretty technical and you're seem like you got a good marketing head on your shoulders and stuff." So of course he was way, way, way overselling my capabilities at the time when I was young, but that's okay. So he said, "Hey, let's kind of double down on this commercial services thing and let's go after it." So what was really cool about that is it was like I had this opportunity to build my own company within a really big company, right? And that kind of plays into the rest of my career, which is sort of like how I built, um, different facets of these businesses. But really, they gave me a budget. They gave me, a very little budget, but they said, "Hey, go build a network, go find the customers, go create this thing." So, it's pretty hilarious. When we were doing that early on, everybody was using TDM and using, T1s, DS3s, et cetera. In fact, DS3s were pretty expensive even back then. But, we couldn't necessarily afford to put in a large optical network. So I started using Ethernet. And I was like, I'm going to build this Ethernet network that is cheap because I can buy Cisco switches for cheap. I can buy media converters over fiber for cheap, and I can pull this whole network together. So we built a massive Ethernet network for one of these providers, and it was essentially started because it was the most effective way to do it. And that was before Metro Ethernet was even a thing as far as transport. So it was right when it was coming out. I won't say it's before, but it was, there were some security issues and things with it. Anyway, going way too deep into the weeds here, but it was it was cool because it was the first time where like something we created was working really well. I mean, so well, in fact, that people were migrating from AT&T and other major providers in mass because of how well it worked. And later on, people would ask things like, "Hey, how did you guys have the foresight to do Ethernet over TDM?" And I was like, "Well, it was actually kind of a, a happy mistake, as Bob Ross might say." So anyway, so that kind of led me into the technology and really launching products with these telecom companies. And with my most recent stint there in San Diego, everything kind of married up. So I was doing engineering, I was doing operations, I was doing, sales engineering, and then ultimately marketing. And so when I landed in San Diego in that role, when I met you, it was really about, okay, let's go really fully understand the startup space and the ecosystem there in San Diego and in Orange County. And it just plugged me into this whole new world of like, okay, I feel like I've been a startup, even though I had a ton of backing and money, so it was kind of cheating. But I just related to that energy and that excitement of building something. And I think that was kind of the first time it sort of, you know, really sort of put it together for me. It's like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Because these people, yourself in a big way, and everybody that, we were introduced to, we were just talking in the same language, and it was really, really cool. So anyway, that was a
Which
really
is
long way
unique.
of saying that, but you
No,
can edit
no.
out anything you want.
Well, no, it's unique that startup and telecom are talking the same language, that's for sure. And that people who are in the startup community, building startup community, run into a big company, someone within a big company that cares and gets it. And you guys, you and Todd Backus got it
Yeah,
right away, right?
love Todd Backus. Yep,
We started right away the Founders Dinner series, right?
yep,
Bringing founders and funders together.
yep,
Which, and then we also, so, and what you learned at the table at a dinner conversation really quickly was new set of tools, new set of problems, right? And you
yeah,
said, you know what? We're getting so much alpha from this, even just you, let alone the company, we spun up a second dinner series, the CTO dinner series, to say,
Yep.
let's meet technical leaders and understand their problems separately from company leaders or CEOs in that regard. And we had two whole dinner series going in multiple cities, actually, right?
Yeah.
San Diego, Santa Barbara, Orange County.
Yeah.
Uh, and then during COVID, we kept them going through virtual cocktail making classes, uh, which was a trip. And we actually introduced people who are now co-founders who met on online on Zoom making a cocktail because of that series we did, by the way. I don't even know if you know that story. Uh,
I think you mentioned it. It's so interesting because you see these success stories. And I remember, sitting at dinner, and I remember this distinct feeling, and I know we've talked about it several times, so hope you don't mind me sharing, but
mhm.
it's like, what is this, guy from this company here with us? Like they're not a startup, they're a big company. And I have to give credit to the company because they let us invest in that space. And I think was a great amount of foresight for a large company to even understand that. So, kudos. But it was really neat, um, bridging those connections. And then now, it's like it's wild to think about it's been that long, but now you see these startups. Well, they're not startups anymore. There's actually some pretty decent sized companies. And it wasn't like, hey, that was their first stage or anything, but it just feels cool to be a part of like that history. And I'm eternally grateful to you for pulling us in on some of those because that was super fun. Just a great time.
I mean, I'm pretty sure at the first dinner, maybe the second was Cody Barbo and Daniel
Yeah,
Goldstein starting Trust and Will. Like they had just started it or something in that
that's
dinner,
right.
right? So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love those guys. Yeah, the hardest working. I mean, it's just unbelievable story. So yeah, that was cool.
Well, some of the things we learned though was that especially the CTO series, because I remember there was times where we had, say, the CTO or chief architect of Intuit sitting next to, right, you who's thinking through kind of a product management and marketing lens, sitting next to the CTO of a two-person startup, right? And
Yeah,
you had this Intuit guy saying, Alex, I think was his name, being like, man, I wish I was you. I could be nimble, I could try stuff. And they're like, man, we wish we were you, right? We could
yes.
have funds and teams, right? And you're in the middle, kind of like helping this conversation happen, saying, you know what? There's a lot of value here, learning from each other,
Yeah.
and leaning on. I don't know. I just found a lot. I remember a lot of those conversations where we wouldn't think, man, we should only have startups. No, we should actually have like multiple stages, but same kind of thinking
Yes.
to share in networks in that regard too. So
Yeah, and it was what I loved about those nights is, we'd usually plan for a couple hours, through 2, 3 hours, I think, what the dinner was. And I love every single time, we're shutting down the restaurant and the employees are sitting there like, hey man, like you guys told us this was gonna be over. And it was just a fantastic time. Yeah, I love doing that. It was great. So
well, and it kept you nimble too, kept
yeah,
you with your ear to the ground on what speed looks like, what strategy looks like, and where the industry's headed. And I think that was smart with a telecom. Luckily, you were at a private telecom that did reinvent itself often, right?
right.
Started as a newspaper company and eventually is like a media company now, I think, or something, or sold off its media. Anyway, but
Well, it's a phenomenal company, and I like I said, I'm very grateful to have worked there, and I think that they just looked at the world differently. It wasn't like it was actually the smallest telecom that I worked for, and believe it or not, but they just thought of things differently. Very
yeah.
much investment focused, very much startup. Lots about, people and how technology impacts people and really wanting to make a change. I remember telling you this, and every single time we had a dinner, talking about how this company is different and they, even though maybe their brand perception isn't always the greatest, it is really a special place. And when they say, hey, we're fixing things, we're changing things for the better, they actually meant it. Like I've worked for companies where I'm like, yeah, whatever, we're a green company, we save paper, don't print this out, etc. But no, this is they're a different company. They're pretty special. So anyway, it was
And
pretty cool.
obviously, our listeners are smart. We're apparently purposely not saying their name. Okay, fine. And so we'll move off them soon, so that doesn't sound so much like we're talking about the company here. But they did. I do want to talk about one thing, which I think probably led to your current path, which was they also gave you the freedom to like scout talent, scout new technologies to invest in.
Yep.
Which I saw. That's so it's when you and I stopped working together as much because you took it on professionally to say, let's expand the company services in a certain regard. Where'd you kind of learn from kind of the managed services piece that
Yeah, and that was, I mean, man, I'd love to say that it was like all orchestrated and I was the guy, orchestrating it. It really was more of an accident than that. It was sort of like, we had a real good connection with the startup ecosystem in Southern California, and there happened to be some very good managed services companies here. And so I worked with a few people at corporate and, talked to them about what the opportunities were and started meeting with these companies out here and ultimately ended up in an acquisition play, which was just incredible, really cool experience overall. But yeah, I think it was interesting because, and I see it all the time now, especially now where people are saying buy versus build, buy versus build, buy versus build. And I think that message is maybe shifting a little bit now.
build?
Um, is buying is becoming less attractive in some cases. But I think it was sort of this realization of tech is moving so fast. If if we were going to go build this thing, we would already be behind, and so it was like, okay, we need to go make this investment. And so, I feel like, that was kind of the first step in creating this startup ecosystem within the company. And, I know we were talking about, 3M and sort of how they kind of look at innovation back in the day, and and this will play into ultimately our AI conversation. But, I saw that spirit, that startup spirit living and breathing and really looking for these next big opportunities, which was, again, you don't always see that in large corporations. And I felt very, very fortunate to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. Well, it was apparent. I mean, I travel all over the country to with your company. I
Yeah.
just saw them sponsoring Techstars, which was a startup accelerator,
Yep.
and employees actually come out and mentor there. I mean, it was totally different, right? So I think there was very many reasons why you ended up there and why you ended up on the path you are now. Do you remember your kind of first your own personal build moment, like the first time a spark went off and you're like, I could build my something myself?
Well, yeah, I mean, a long time ago. So when I was actually in college, when I first started creating my own companies, and I started a board game company, and
Hmm.
it was funny because at the time we sold product to Nordstrom and Amazon, and Amazon was still a bookseller. So back in the day, they didn't have the Amazon market. You actually had to sell to Amazon, product, and then they would resell it just like any retailer. So I had this spark, and I think, at some point, I realized while I loved it, I loved being a startup. I loved having my own company when I was younger. Um, and this was before you could do like, hey, I'm at an online marketplace or anything. We weren't quite there yet. Aging myself, right? But but I think what I realized at some point, I'm like, okay, now I got to grow up and get a real job, quote unquote, and get into corporate and do this thing, right? So it never left. Like this drive to be an entrepreneur was always there. Even before that, and doing painting and lawn mowing and stuff as a kid, I'm like going to, bang on the neighbors' doors and trying to get jobs.
Wait, tell
So
us about the board game real quick. What was it called?
it was called Commotion.
Commotion.
It was a play on charades. It was a buddy of mine in college. His name's Mark Medley. He's a great guy. And so yeah, we launched a board game, and again, it was, my I talked to my kids about it. It's not like you jumped online and found, hey, here's a board game manufacturer. Like you were going to, look at, these catalogs and trying to find manufacturers and looking. So we find this company in Texas who can do board games, and we're flying out there, and we're like 18 years old, right? And then we're flying up to Nordstrom in Seattle to talk to the buyers there, and to Fred Meyer and some. So I'm like, we're 18 years old flying around, trying to sell this game. And fortunately, we had some bootstrap, friends and family kind of money that helped us get that initial run going. But yeah, it was wild. It was super cool. And I don't know if it's still out there. I know we ended up selling it to a distributor, but
Hmm.
anyway, I don't believe it's out there. You might be able to find some old versions of it somewhere on Amazon or used game. I think it's probably still got my picture on there from when I was 18. So,
Yes. Oh,
um,
we were gonna find that and link it in the show. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, that would be funny. Um,
Okay.
but anyway,
So
so
you
that was
so
it. I
you
mean,
you
it,
so
it
you
just,
retapped your inner entrepreneur.
yeah, yeah. And so I think always loved building, always loved creating. And then so when I got out of, when I was able to do that in my last job, which was great. But then when I left, I was immediately thrust into this new world of like, I almost, it was scary because I had been in corporate so long and getting, a paycheck and just like, okay, cool, we're doing this, we're doing that, meetings, presentation, going to do, all of a sudden it's me. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, what are we're back on the train of creating things, and it took me a minute just to, get everything sort of organized and say, okay, what do I know? What do I need to brush up on? Because again, like when you're in a large company like that, you're not building everything. You have teams to do it. And I had a fantastic team, love them. Um, but now it's like, okay, now I'm going to build it, right? So you start building stuff, and it was really cool because all of a sudden, like that energy, I used to find myself at the end of the day getting tired, and then I found myself again being like, okay, it's 3 in the morning, I can't sleep because I'm like just fired up, creating something, and so it's like, I got to go to bed because I don't think I would go to sleep if I kept going on this. So, and I hadn't had that in a minute, be totally honest with you. Not to get all therapeutic on you here, but but it was
Oh no,
it was
people want to
cool
hear it.
because all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to put this to bed because I'm vibing right now. I know it's overused,
Yeah.
but I'm totally vibing building this thing. And so I just started building stuff, which was super cool.
Well, you have been a transition at the perfect Gen AI moment where you really could actually vibe code.
Yeah.
And, so what was the first thing you jumped on? Do you remember? Like what transitioned your mind that was like, whoa, the power is in my fingers right here?
That's a good question. It was interesting. I was working on some work for a company around brand. Um, and, so I worked with some of the largest brand companies in the country, on projects that were millions of dollars, with some of these large, and these are, Chicago, New York based brand companies, right? And it was always interesting to me because I knew their process. I know their process. I have their process, right? But I don't have the resources and the people and all this to put it together. So I think the first realization where I was kind of putting this, I was like, okay, let me get out this old brand deck we did and this brand deck, and let me see if I could piece this together about, remember what we were doing. And then all of a sudden it hit me like I think I could just build a tool that does this and takes you through like these brand questions and then does the analysis and research and takes stakeholders, and says, hey, this is the leadership, this is the employees, this is the survey for customers, and automatically send this out, pull the data back into, and I was using at the time Supabase,
Mhm.
um, and pull all this information back, reanalyze the data, and then say, okay, this is what your stakeholders say, this is what your customers say, this is what your investors say, this is what your employees say, this is what the leadership thinks, and it was surprisingly easy. And that was where all of a sudden this light goes on of like, I just created this front end and back end. And again, I'm not, I think I said this the other day on LinkedIn. I'm not trying to flex. I'm not like, oh, I'm a coder. I'm not. I just, use these tools that are available to us now. Um, and it blew my mind. I sat there and watched this thing come together. And I'm technical enough, based on being an engineer in the past where, a lot of it made sense, but I'm not a coder, And so it was just this realization of, man, it was wild just seeing this thing get compiled in front of my
Mhm.
eyes.
Yeah,
I think that was probably the first like real project that I just said, "Oh my gosh, this is scary and awesome and every other emotion you could think of." So,
totally. I think I remember you were seeing some of your stuff on Lovable, right? Is that what you were using, Lovable or
yeah, I mean,
V0?
I played with a bunch of different platforms.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got this light hitting me
Okay.
weird, so trying to dodge it.
Yeah.
I played with a bunch of platforms. So was working with V0, Lovable, Base 44. Uh, man, trying to think. There was a few others in there. Um, I'm trying to remember. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and there's positives about each one of them. And what I really liked about I started finding I liked platforms that were a little bit LLM agnostic. So it's like
Mhm.
I don't necessarily, especially now, I don't mind the compiler and builder being LLM specific, but I like being able to access different models for the application, right?
Mhm.
So there's things that I think, like if you look at Anthropic, Claude, and I mean, there's just been recently another moment in the last month with Opus 4.5 where it's just, I mean, I'm building stuff now, and even when I was building stuff on Claude, a few months ago, it's even surpassed that. And so it's wild. But so there's things like that where you go, okay, cool. Like this is really where this model, this LLM fits. This is really good for this specific use case. You know, no disrespect to Google, because for a while they were a little bit behind, and then all of a sudden Gemini came way back. But from a coding perspective, it's falling behind again, and so it's I
Mhm.
think it's just you almost have to use all the models. I feel like, um, because everything is moving so fast that if you're not, you're going to miss out. So I kind of like to just go back and forth. I mean, for a minute I was using Lovable and then V0 and going back and forth with Vercel, and then what I really liked about what Lovable did is they started to integrate all this. So they use Claude, Opus 4.5 for their main, chat bot, but then they started to integrate, things like Supabase, GitHub, make it really easy to connect. And Even things like Google Analytics, page speed insights, they've started to integrate into that interface. And so, um, a lot of times if people don't want to go in and use Claude Code directly, as a CLI, I always tell them just, go get a Lovable account and upload your PRD, or, even if it's not a PRD, just upload what you're thinking and just be ready to be blown away because it's really, really cool. So anyway.
Yeah. So you started working with just really, I think you were just walking around your community, talking to shop owners, business owners in the retail space, and you started just what I remember from you were building coding by night, vibe coding by night, but talking to retail owners, people
Yeah.
you also knew because of where you live in San Clemente,
Yeah.
and started I feel like you started like merging the two, being like, wait, these are these problems. I could be integrating them into these kinds of things. Like, tell us that. Like, where did the online, offline kind of piece start to make
Yeah,
sense?
I think marketing is such a massively broad practice, and you can talk about brand, you can talk about acquisition and lead gen. You can talk about, I mean, there's so many things to go over. And so I think what I started to realize is just like anything in any startup, if you go too wide, you're going to fail. So you got to kind of tailor that message. And then I just really enjoyed working with small business owners because um, that's really where the passion is at. And I know when I would compare it to technology, right? When we would talk to business owners about technology, I don't think I've ever met a business owner that when you say, "Hey, let's talk about your technology," they go, "Oh, I'm so happy. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I love my technology." It's like it's a point of frustration and stress. And even in technology companies, there's so much technical debt. I was actually talking to a friend about this today, where, it's like, hey, I'll get to that later, or we'll patch that later. Or, I just use my password for right now, and then we'll figure it out later. And I feel like marketing's the same way. It's become, there's so much messaging out there about, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you got to have this advertising, and what I found is that, there's a lot of companies out there that you'll look them up and they don't even have a Google business profile set up. And I'm
Mm.
talking about Main Street,
Yeah.
right? Which is like so fundamental, the idea of searching. It used to be growing up, if you had a great business, people would talk, they would come find you and everything would be great. With Google search, inserted in the middle of that process now, if you don't have a Google business profile, it's like you almost don't exist in some ways, right? To people that are dropping into town. And we live in kind of a transient community here in San Clemente because people are shooting through, on the freeway. So you almost have to give them a reason to stop, and they're like, "Oh, what, here's a cool spot."
Mm.
So anyway, so it kind of started with that. It's like, how do you start to find, your business, and how do you, get it set up so that people can find you? And then, that's just the bare basics of marketing. And then it obviously turns into uh, how do you now with LLMs and with AI, how do you make sure that when people are doing voice search, et cetera, that they're able to find you? But I think that's where it started, Neal, was just figuring out what some of these small business owners were dealing with, their frustrations, their pain points. And it's no different, when we used to, do these pitch competitions. We always used to coach people on starting with the pain point. And
Yep.
so I do the same thing. I look at see where the pain is and then try to solve it.
Yeah. But even tools like even modern things now, you have to consider like your example of are you in Google Business Review? It's just as important now that search has moved to the LLM, it's like, well, are you being when someone's saying I need this, are you showing up in GPT, right?
Yep.
Which further even puts a business owner they're like, I have no idea. I don't even know if I have a website,
Yeah.
let alone am I show being is an LLM knowing how to do that. So is there even so, are you coaching them on that more, or they're just saying, just take it off my plate, just
It's
handle, get me in
it
there.
depends on the client, on the business. There's some people that are very interested in understanding how it works, and they want to know you know how to navigate that.
Hmm.
But I think there's there's a lot of business owners that, I mean, think about it, right? I mean, you're running a business and you just want to focus on your business. You want to figure out, how to maximize your revenue, how to, clean up your operations, how to make sure that, customers are getting their needs met. And so I think it's like I don't think a lot of business owners have the time. So it's, as much as I think it's interesting. A lot of startup and small business owners, they're actually great. They're actually really good marketers.
Mm.
Um, they have a very good intuition. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got it as far as they are, right? They've got a great intuition on marketing and sales. However, I think sometimes it's just they don't have the data to really see what's working and what's not working. And so part of it's giving them the data. Another part of it is creating some automation so that, they're not sitting there, worried about returning email or, some of these parts of their business are just very transactional, right? And so the less time they're spending on these transactional items, they're actually able to really focus on the large scale. And we see that. I mean, look, there was the same thing when I was a corporate. We would spend a ton of time on transactional stuff,
Hmm.
and it would really keep you from driving the overall strategy of the company. Right.
Hmm. Interesting.
So,
That makes sense.
so
What's resonating from a new tools perspective with, business owners right now? Where are they understanding that like they need to get up to speed a little bit?
great. Yeah, I think people are still trying to understand. I mean, it started out where, AI, they're like, yeah, we know we need to implement it, but it sounds like it's hard. And so I think we've kind of surpassed that now where people are realizing that adding chat agents to your website and whatnot is not necessarily hard.
Mm.
But I will say, I had another discussion about this. You need to be really careful because you're essentially enabling an agent to take care of your brand in certain scenarios, right? So, there's a lot of phone systems. We actually do voice agents. And I'm always very careful about where and what businesses we use them. I think in highly transactional businesses, it works great. It's like, hey, I don't really want to talk to anybody. If I know it's a virtual agent, it doesn't really matter because I'm okay with that. There's other moments where as a customer, and I know you felt it, I know I have, where you get on and you've got a virtual agent there and they're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that command. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, did you say this? And you're like, no, I didn't say that. And you're yelling at the phone. And so that that can take actually a really great brand and destroy it. I mean, you can
Mm.
take a brand where they love you and you put them through that, and then it could be literally one interaction where now all of a sudden their brand, you know, um, you know, metrics and their love for your brand is not there. So
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, it's like you don't lead with tech. It has to be behind the scenes and just do solve the problem. Which is kind of what tech's always been, right? Like you really shouldn't have to talk about AI. You should just be like, did we solve your problem? Great.
Yeah.
Right? No one cares what you built it on. No one cares if you have dev team here or somewhere else. It really
Yeah.
just comes down to is is that business solving that person's need, and therefore they will gladly pay you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just a matter of being able to route that to the right location, right? So there's brand moments where you need to show up for your customer.
Yeah.
And that includes when they're having trouble and they have a pain point, I think are some of the most critical.
Mm.
And it's no different, in your personal life. I wrote recently on LinkedIn, it was like, AI can take care of a lot of things, but AI is never going to be you, right?
Mhm.
AI is not going to sit down and have a conversation between you and me.
Uh-huh.
AI is not going to show up at your kid's, soccer game. AI is not going to, grill burgers with your buddies in the backyard. It's not going to be there when your parents are, potentially on, in the hospital or something, And so I mean, it's like no kidding, right? But, I think sometimes as businesses, we put AI in that seat.
Mm.
And I mean, think about that, right? You send a humanoid, to your kid's game. It's like, hey, don't worry about it, kid. Like, I sent the humanoid who watched it and I'll watch later. Your kid's like, come on, man. Dad, really? I mean, this is gonna be a thing, right? Soon.
Mhm.
Um, and we have this opportunity to own moments in our lives, but also as a brand in business. And I think we're far too eager to throw stuff on AI,
Mm.
and it has a mass impact on our NPS for our brand. Um, so I'm always really careful about where we implement it. It's not like, hey, just go implement it everywhere. It can do this, it can do this, it can do this. And then when you do, you need to make sure that it can do what it says it's going to do, because those are brand moments. Those are opportunities that you're either going to get people to promote you or detract from you, and sometimes you don't
Yep.
get another shot.
Yep. You're right. And I think you and I have talked about this. It's hopefully the tech gives you the freedom to have those human moments, even as a business owner, to be upfront with the customer, as opposed to having to rack your brain out and doing bookkeeping and accounting
Yeah.
behind when you're just like, I just want to help people like find like the love of surfing, right? Or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
See, oh man, now you're getting me pumped up, because this is where it gets exciting, right? If it's done right, if you implement this correctly, then you get shop owners come out, from the back where they're doing inventory and they're doing, and they're dealing with employees and payroll and responding to customers, and they're there and they're like, "Hey, Neal, what's up, man? How are you?" And you can sit there and have a talk with the owner of the company and talk about his passions. And I was in Costa Rica last week, and this happened. Um, so that's where, like, when I want to say, if when we get to that level, that's going to be really, really special. And that, that's going to create brand equity far greater than anything that AI is going to do, or anything, especially for small business. It's a little harder for large enterprise, but again, it's not impossible. I think it was Target, actually. They were walking, or they were doing a daily walk with associates around the store and saying, "Hey, we want you to talk to people." And I was in a Target, actually, before I knew about it. I was in a Target and I was walking down the aisle, and this employee came up to me and said, "Hey, how you doing today?" And I like almost fell over, because I'm like, what did I do? Like, I didn't steal anything. Like, what's going on? And he goes, "No, just checking in, see if I could help you find anything." And I was shocked. I mean, it was literally this moment of, like, sort of, I'm in the twilight zone, but also like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Mhm. Yep.
And so I get excited about that. I think that if we can do this right, and I feel like we're on a good track, scary at times, yes, but if we do this right, then all of a sudden this gives us these moments back to own
Mhm.
and to be, and to connect with each other. And that I think is going to be the most powerful thing.
100%.
So
The tech part layer on top of that might be that they've tracked your entire like path through the target, and they're like, Jared, why are you walking in circles around the thing, right?
yeah, yeah. It's probably
But that might light up an associate, be like, we got a lost guy here who can't find like that thing, right?
yeah.
Which is good, that's fine. Or they might have recorded that conversation on an AI note-taking bracelet,
There you
and that
go.
being plumbed back, being like, here's a conversation we had. Here's how we can improve human interaction. So it will get
By the way, I need
creepy.
to get one of those.
I
I
got
need
you.
to
I'll
get
send
that.
you a bee,
All right.
a bee wearable. Yep.
Yes, I need to get a B. Those are pretty slick.
So it is going to get creepy for a little bit, and then hopefully we get past the creepy into the value, which you said, the human, right? That's definitely the opportunity here.
I
Uh,
think we will. I mean, I feel like that's where we're taking. Maybe I'm being too optimistic potentially. But I feel like, that is the real opportunity for us as builders and creators. And I just love this idea of like letting the technology loose. And I get, especially coming from a corporate environment with, corporate guidance and security and everything. I get it. It's hard, easier said than done.
mhm.
Corporate governance. It's if you could release this in your organization, and whether you're big or small, and I go back to that 3M example, when they really tried to let their customers innovate, and they came up with some of the most amazing things, products today for 3M. You open this up for your employees, and all of a sudden everybody's creating, and I think that's the most exciting thing, I think, for any company, any size, because you can compete. It totally levels the playing field. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, you and I have seen it because we've been in these co-working spaces and whatnot. And so we see, people talking about an app and developing it and pulling it together. This starts to happen at scale now. And
Yeah.
it is, you don't need to sit there with a coder. Um, and again, I'm not saying you don't need coders, because you do. Actually, they become more important, I feel like, in this equation.
Yep.
But I will say that you have these ideas that ultimately get spun up in a very short amount of time that are super powerful.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you and I joined the tech world because of the optimism for it, right? Tech
yeah,
for giving people a new life, a better life, to change our lives in all for the better, right? So, we're always going to be tech optimists in that regard.
yeah, I
Uh,
can't help it.
adoption rates can be different, but we also know marketing has also taught us a lot about adoption rates too. And it's all about trust in the beginning. I think this year we're going to learn the first time of mass trust of autonomous vehicles. People are going to suddenly realize what they get with their time back when they don't have to drive. Uh,
Yep.
and it's not just going to be the Tesla super nuts, it's going to be everyone,
Yeah.
And I think if that domino falls, people will start being like, well, where else can I get my time back? Where else can I be, human again, as opposed to in the spreadsheets all day. So I
Yeah.
think you and I are both pretty excited about that. You're doing it. You're on the street, literally like seeing where that nexus line is, right? And I'm here sitting here being like, the future in 10 years is going to look like this. So it's kind of fun
Yeah.
to share notes like this. That's for sure.
I love it. Well, and to your point about autonomous driving, I showed my wife, I had her in the Tesla, earlier in the year, and I put it on FSD, and she's like, oh, I don't really like how it did that. I don't like that, and that felt a little weird, and so whenever I'm in the car, she essentially was saying, I don't want you to use that. That freaks me out, right? So fast forward to the end of this year, now we're on 14.2.2, whatever, release. And so I said, I'm just going to show you. Like, it's gotten really good. And she goes, no, I don't want you to. I said, no, just, honey, listen. Let me just show you. This is really cool. "Oh, I don't want you to." I said, listen, just come on. Like, I've got my hands right here. Like, watch. So I push it, and she's sitting there, and to your point, right? All of a sudden, she's looking at this, going, actually, this isn't bad. This is kind of nice. I kind of, oh, you know what? I like that. I like how oh, that felt pretty normal. And she, like within maybe a week, all of a sudden was preferring it. And we were driving down the road. In fact, we went to Carlsbad, meet some friends, and it was like, okay, I think we could do this. And she, so to your point about about just the mass acceleration, the incredible acceleration of tech and autonomy, and how this all comes together to build the trust in the system. And as you know, I mean, trust is like that's the foundation of any brand, right? Once you start to be able to trust it, that's really powerful. So yeah, it's going to get crazy. I mean, it already is, and it's just going to go faster, which is super exciting.
Exciting. Things are going to break and we're going to unlock human potential. So, the one thing that might not change too much is our communal love for good food, including tacos.
Oh man. Okay. Huh.
And so
Yeah.
everyone who's listening must know where do you break bread or tortillas? Where do you go for a good taco,
Jeez,
Jared?
man. That's a tough one. I mean, I think gosh, there's so many good ones. And I'm not in San Diego as much as I used to be.
Anywhere.
Try to get there as much as I can. I'll say I'll go with since I was just in Carlsbad, I'll go with Grubby's, Senor Grubby's.
Mm.
I don't know, it's got a special place in my heart, so I'll do that.
Carlsbad Village Special, the back patio, back porch is where it's
That's right.
at,
That's right.
100%. With the extra bar, the back porch bar. Yeah, great spot.
Yeah.
Great spot for
Yeah, I
sure.
love it. I don't get down there as much as I'd like to, but we actually stopped in last time we were there, so good
Well, you and
stuff.
I have been meeting at like the same coffee shop in downtown San Clemente for a while now. It's become a little home away from home for me too. So thanks for always having me with some good local coffee up in San.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple spots here. All I mean, you could stop at Bear Coast is a really great family that owns that. Sir Coffee is another really great, and then High Tide Coffee. I mean, there's a few of them down here, but just one thing I love about our community in San Clemente, and even a lot of the places in San Diego, is just a lot of small business owners. So
Mhm.
it's really neat to be surrounded by entrepreneurship and that energy. So yeah,
Yep.
we're fortunate. It's not always like that.
It's true. It's true. The hustle never sleeps, that's for sure.
That's
Jared,
it.
it's so great to have you on.
Yeah,
Glad we
man.
can have these conversations out in public.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for you to continue building in public because I know you've got some fun other apps
Oh,
that are coming out soon too.
yeah. It's like I can't stop. So that's the scary thing. I had a buddy who's actually moving to the Philippines, and so he hit me up yesterday, and he goes, "Hey, I just realized, there's no real good rental applications in the Philippines, and he's like, is there anything you can do?" And I'm like, thinking to myself, yes, I can build. I don't know Tagalog. I don't speak, Tagalog, but I'm just like, I think I can build it. Let me try. Let me just.
You have the
So
power.
I think that's it, man. Right now, I can't stop. Which is scary. I think I was up till 3:30 last night too, just creating stuff and building stuff. So anyway, I'm starting to freak myself out a little bit.
Well, you have AI to talk to when it's late at night as well too. So that'll
That's right. That's right. Well, I stay away from those. Yeah, I
yeah,
try to. I use it as an employee.
of
So
course. Jared, thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Neal. Take care,
Cheers.
brother.
Bye.
See ya.
Startups get the
Bye.
party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech. You know we got tacos and tech is on smash for the green guacamole. Keep accountants counting beans, contador cuentan frijoles. Founders trying to raise some queso. La vida San Diego, school of rappy, rapping fire, tortillas round jalapenos. In these modern times of craft beer and coffee, my coding yoga posse, fold the body, origami. We be surfing Coronado, eating tacos el gordo. The tacos stand in puesto, lucha libre and sombrero. Gotta shout out Tecos, Daniels by the ocean, watch the sunset. La Jolla Shores, entrepreneurs trying to get funded. When San Diego Startup Week is popping in the summer, Oceanside to Tijuana, ST be full of hustlers. From couch surfing to penthouses right on the beach. Tech leaders who believe stars are within reach. We interviewing founders who be shooting for the moon. Hashtag SD Techos with your host, Neal Bloom. Come on! Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech. You know we got it, eh? Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the